The king stared at his bleeding hand, rage simmering beneath his royal composure. His favorite cup lay shattered on the marble floor, a cruel reminder of the moment gone wrong. Good, good, murmured the servant, crouching to pick up the jagged fragments. The king's nostrils flared. Good. I've lost a finger, and my finest cup is ruined. What's good about this, you old fool? The servant's eyes twinkled with calm certainty. Time will tell, your majesty. But the king was not in the mood for riddles. I've had enough of your nonsense. Guards! Lock him in the dungeon. I don't want to see his face again. As the guards dragged him away, the servant muttered, Good. The king scoffed. Madness. 2 days later, the king set out on his weekly hunting expedition. Normally, the servant would guide the royal party, expertly navigating the dense jungle. But today, he was locked away. The king's arrows flew true as he tracked a gazelle deep into the forest, his guards lagging behind at camp. When the kill finally fell, he realized with dread that he was alone, and hopelessly lost. The rustling of leaves snapped him out of his panic. He spun around, only to find himself surrounded by a group of fierce warriors. Painted in vibrant colors, their spears glinted in the dappled sunlight. The king's heart sank as they seized him, binding his hands. Who are you? Let me go, he roared. The warriors didn't answer. They hauled him to their village, where smoke rose from a towering bonfire. Around it, tribesmen danced wildly, chanting in a language he couldn't understand. A man who appeared to be the chief approached, eyeing the king with grim satisfaction. Prepare him for the fire, he commanded. The king's throat tightened. Fire. Was this how his life would end, roasted alive in some faraway jungle? He was dragged into a cave where 3 women stripped him of his royal garments. They worked quickly, but one suddenly froze, staring at his hand. 4 fingers, she hissed, pointing to his injury. The others gasped and rushed to the chief. Moments later, the king was brought back, his bindings undone. The chief looked displeased but waved him away. The fire will not accept you. Leave. The tribesmen shoved him onto his horse, and before the sun rose, the king found his way back to the palace. That morning, the dungeon echoed with the sound of keys turning. The king himself unlocked the servant's cell. You were right, the king said, his voice thick with gratitude. If I hadn't lost my finger, they would have sacrificed me. My injury saved my life. The servant smiled, unshaken. Good. The king laughed, shaking his head. But tell me, why did you say good when I ordered your imprisonment? Surely that wasn't good for you. It was, the servant replied. Had I been free, I would have accompanied you as always. When they spared you, they would have taken me instead. My time in this cell spared my life. The king stared at the servant, his mind racing. Why didn't I see it before, he muttered. Why didn't I live like this, trusting that everything happens for a reason? The servant's gaze softened. It's not about mindset, your majesty. It's faith. The king's voice rang through the palace. God is good all the time. The servant simply smiled. All the time.